Hi everyone, and welcome to a little bit different video than our norms. We're actually going to talk through some questions that we've received and a little bit about how we've gone about this career break, from planning to how we research to time where we spend it and how we spend it, and also some things that we desperately miss.
And I think this format will be a little more casual.
Yeah.
We're hoping to not script it. Surprisingly, we don't script usually, but less scripted this time.
Even
just
less.
kind of a little back and forth, talking a little more about what we've been doing over the past 3 months, which a lot of you have seen in our recent videos.
So we've gone to Thailand, we've gone to Vietnam, and we've gone to Indonesia. So we thought this was a good point to stop and answer some of these questions before we continue on with the rest of our travels.
So Rachel and I, give a little background, have been living in London, as we're Americans, but we've been living in London the past 3 years. So while we were during COVID, we kind of came to the realization that long term, we're supposed to see ourselves back in the US. So we're living in London. We know in the future we're going back to the US. So we both had this realization that for the first time in our life, we're both going to be quitting our jobs at the same time. So when this quit came up, we initially started saying, okay, we had this break in our careers, we're between jobs. This may be the only time in our life where we have this time, so we started talking about a career break. A break where we just literally just travel and enjoy life and don't worry about our jobs. So this career break started off with, okay, let's take a couple weeks off. Let's take a month off. And then we're like, no, let's take a real career break. Let's take 6 months. We've talked about a year. We don't want to put a time limit on it. We have a budget and we want to see what we want to see. And however long that takes, however long that lasts, that's our overall goal.
A lot of people asked why we didn't just ask our companies for sabbaticals, and we absolutely could have. We weren't afraid to do that. I think even me, in turning in my notice, my company offered sabbatical, which was very kind, but it's still that limit on time. Even if it is 6 months, 8 months, a year, we just wanted to be completely loose and free of any limitations. So that's why we decided to do a full-blown career break.
Absolutely. I think every time you've taken a vacation in the past, there's always that moment where you're worried about going back to your job, you're worried about what's on your to-do list. And we wanted to really experience a moment where we didn't have to worry about that, and that's what we were seeking out. Our budget that we've set aside for this travel is £40,000. Apologies to the Americans that are loaning in dollars. Our savings are in pounds.
Can be found.
Yeah, Rachel, put it up on the screen.
Here.
Our savings are in pounds, so we think about it as in pounds. So we've set aside £40,000, and our goal is to make that £40,000 last as long as it can. If it's 6 months, if it's a year, if it's 10 months, that's our goal, is to make that much money last as long as possible.
We don't own a home. We were renting both in Atlanta and in London, so we have no mortgage that is in the background. We don't have any financial commitments that we're having to pay for now, so that's another reason why a break was a lot easier for us to do. John and I both, when we envisioned this career break, 3 countries were a definite, which are the 3 you all have experienced already. Those were the 3 places that we really wanted to go. We heard were very economical from day-to-day living, accommodation, and the biggest cost would just be the flight to get there. After that, we have a hard budget of $40,000. We don't really have a time budget, which is great. So we started looking at what are some places that have been on our bucket list or just far enough or in that part of the world that once we get there, it's not so drastic of a flight or a cost to land.
Southeast Asia is one route. A lot of people do Eastern Europe. It didn't really appeal to us.
We've done a lot of European travel living in London. So
yeah, you look at what you get for your money in Southeast Asia, and I think that was a no-brainer for where we wanted to start. We were looking for slower travel. We were looking for easy travel. And I think Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, a month in each was perfect for our start.
Then the question became, where do we want to go next? What's kind of in the general vicinity? And how can we use things like points, like off-day travel or off-time travel to get where we want to go and not spend as much? Because John and I are only around each other, conversation is constant. As we experience things in these countries, we start to think about what are even more exciting things to do, like maybe more religious ventures like a trip to Jordan and Israel, or do we want to maybe get back towards Europe because we're starting to miss some of that westernization in life. So Those are kind of how we plan and look at it.
So kind of how we planned this is these first 3 countries were, that was as far as we were going to go. And we weren't really sure if Southeast Asia was going to be, if we could do 3 months. Surprisingly, yeah, we felt like we were, after 3 months, we were still feeling good.
Decent headspace.
So that's why we're going to the Philippines next. Somebody told us, like, coming into it, that you just kind of figure it out and you just kind of do it. And I think for us, we didn't really have success with that. So we kind of have a plan of where we're going, the direction that we're going, and we're constantly planning. You may plan a week, but then that week's over and you got to plan again.
I think that's what changes this from being vacation to being a career break and like living and travel. You have to have what we kind of joke and say are your Saturdays and your Sundays. Like, what are your days that you're just going to hang out in your accommodation, get on some really good Wi-Fi, and figure out and research what your next few steps are. There's a very real balance between not having enough planned and then you lose out on cheap accommodation, you lose out on an itinerary, you lose out on seeing something you really want because you're just too late. But then equally making sure that you're not planning so far in the advance that you really restrict yourself to a very long-term agenda and you're not able to enjoy the city you're in because you're just so worried about planning the next thing.
I mean, it takes time to book hotels. It takes time to book, so I think for us, our plan is to maybe have like 4 or 5 days where we're enjoying life, we're doing things, but then we got to have a day where we're planning the next part of our trip. We kind of have assumed roles.
I am obsessed with looking at accommodation, which is why I've taken it on that
I have
role.
to pull you away from the computer, like stop, just pick it.
I can spend hours on booking.com and Airbnb. It's, for whatever reason, one of my favorite things to do. So whenever I look at accommodation, there's a few factors that I consider, and I do see accommodation as kind of being the bedrock whenever we travel. One, because it's going to put us in a neighborhood or in an area. I'm obsessed with getting as much bang for our buck. So how much comfort can I get in a price range that we're trying to stay in? I think on average, we've been trying to stay at about 30 to 35 pounds a night for accommodation. Very easy to do in Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia. As we look at future places, not going to be as easy and going to take a little bit more time. Some non-negotiables that we have tried and looked at hostels, and I just don't think they give us exactly what we want as a couple.
I think it's important that we have our own space.
Absolutely.
We appreciate, like, we've done some private rooms at hostels, but at the end of the day, we want our own bathroom. We want our bedroom. We're not staying in bunk beds.
No. And to that point, we found that a lot of private rooms and hostels are actually more expensive than just getting a hotel room. So, or like a smaller Airbnb. So we go with that. Second thing for us, air conditioning. Air conditioning, air conditioning, air conditioning, especially traveling in the summer in Southeast Asia and our future itineraries. Air conditioning is very important.
I also think if you just can't get on Wi-Fi, we really rely on connecting with family members at night. We do research for next places at night. If you can't even get on Wi-Fi, you're just stranded in the middle of nowhere. You can't get cool at night, and you can't connect with anybody else. It gets it's tough. So I think that's where we have found that's what we look for reviews. Is those are the key items.
We've sacrificed a lot more, I think, than we would have thought 3 months ago. Hot water, we can kind of give or take. Really, really high-speed Wi-Fi, I think you kind of have to give up whenever you're in somewhere like Southeast Asia. We've learned in staying in more budget-friendly places, you're not going to get your bed made up. You're not going to get your towels changed. You're not going to get a plethora of towels or kettles or tea or complimentary coffee. That's just kind of out the window. And I think we're okay with that.
For us, we've tried different ranges, and we've found that you can go too cheap at times.
You can go too cheap.
I think for us, if you're trying to sleep at night and you're just hot, if your air conditioner's not good, like Rachel said, aircon is very important for us. If you can't get comfortable at night sleeping, that makes for a really miserable experience because you can go too cheap.
Absolutely. So we've also had some frustrating experiences where we've gone budget and we've gone outside of the city center, and it's been really tough to get around, and we've wasted a lot of time and money just trying to get back into the area that we want to be. If you're eating out every single evening, you also want to put yourself near restaurants rather than maybe closer to attractions. Because then you can also have more variety in your food, which actually can be really important when you're just eating out 24/7.
So the day-to-day, the logistics of getting from one place to the next.
I'd say that's pretty much you.
That's
your
what I
bag.
kind of handle, like staying at accommodations and talking to the people that are running the hotels or running the Airbnbs. That's what we found a lot of benefit. They tell us how to transfer, they tell us what to do, they tell us how people go from one place to the other. You kind of have to figure out how the locals travel, and that's how you should be seeking to travel.
Yep.
This also comes back to, like I said earlier, where you kind of want to have your route and plan, because if you get on one side of the country and you only have, say, a 30-day visa in Thailand, and you have to get to the other side of the country, you can really drop a lot of unnecessary cash through plane tickets. And if you're able to do a train, or if you're able to do a bus, you can really save a lot of money versus just flying. There's times we take private transfers in Bali most of the time.
Yeah.
The money that we were saving wasn't worth the ability to just get up when we wanted to and take a private transfer. That approach of traveling as locals travel, we found that to be a really helpful, really cost-saving way to do things.
We laugh to ourselves a lot because when we first started researching, and as we continue to follow fellow travelers on their career breaks, we would see average daily food spends of like $12, $15, $20 for a couple, and we have not hit that. I think it's fair to say that we both each have a healthy appetite. It's definitely something where we try to be budget friendly, but it's also for us one of the most important pieces of travel. We want to experience the local cuisine. I think in all of our videos you see where we're highlighting food, we're highlighting drink.
We don't make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I think that's where we draw a line. But otherwise, we feel like we eat as cheap as possible.
We take advantage of free breakfast whenever we get them. That's also another thing I look for in accommodation. We always eat locally. I think Vietnam, we never spoke English anywhere that we ate. I can count on one hand probably the times that we've broken and had Western food. But it is a little side note tradition for us to have McDonald's at the airport. that is our splurge. On the topic of drink, I think one of the more healthily tense moments in our travel is whenever it comes to alcoholic beverages, specifically wine, because as you probably know where you live, if you have a beer versus a glass of wine or a cocktail, the beer is always going to be cheaper.
I can drink beer all day, and Rachel does not like beer.
Not a big fan.
But I think the first time we really appreciated this was when we got to Thailand, and Rachel just got a glass of wine, per usual.
Which is hard to find in Southeast Asia.
And her glass of wine was literally more expensive than both of our meals combined.
Yeah.
So that's where the conversation kind of started, I guess.
For all of you wine lovers out there like me, to say that Southeast Asia is a plethora of wine is a gross overstatement. There's not that much. And it would be really frustrating when I would splurge on a glass of wine and it wouldn't even be that great. I would say if you're a beer drinker, you're in good stance.
I don't think it's fair to call us like drinkers.
No.
Like
No.
I probably have like 2 beers a week.
No,
3 beers a
absolutely.
week, and you have like 1 glass of wine.
Yeah.
But I think
we're not drinking every day, not even close.
I think that was part of us adjusting, because typically we would have a drink in the afternoon and we'd have a drink with dinner, and we cut that out just because of the budget. It was really adding up quickly. But I think you do have to reward yourself at times.
Definitely.
If you have a hot day, a cold beer is sometimes one of my favorite things. At least sometimes Rachel, you immediately feel better after a glass of wine. So I think there's a balance, but for us, we really dramatically decreased that. But we still have a glass from here and there, and that's kind of how we've been operating. I think from Southeast Asia, if you're trying to do budget, you just can't afford to drink that much. But yeah, I think we've started feeling better. Our bodies feel better, and I think it's something that we've adjusted to nicely.
Yeah, I also subbed in wine for those delicious sweet teas you get across Southeast Asia, so that was great.
I miss just the level of service you get when you pay the extra $1.
Really?
I think that, like, for us, we spend and we budget And then you get to certain accommodations or you get to certain places and you really feel that extra dollar you might have spent. You really feel it on a day-to-day basis. You really feel it when you're questioning, do you have air conditioner? Like that's something that you would never question if you spend a certain amount of dollar. So it's constantly like you feel that impact, and it's always, you do your best to make up for it, and you sit there and say, oh, it doesn't matter, but you do get what you pay for a lot of times. That's what I feel. So for us, I do miss you go to a nice place, they treat you very nicely, over a top service. When you go to a budget place, they look at you, and a lot of times I feel like what is sacrificed is the service.
What I miss most is we had, I think, one place in Vietnam where we had a couch with a TV with Netflix with a kitchen area, and just that ability to wake up and not be in just being in one hotel room with all the love in the world can get really exhausting and really annoying, just from a space perspective. For us, we are used to at least having a space that we can sit, wake up, make a cup of coffee, have a seat comfortably, and kind of move into our day. I think we're probably going to end up splurging a little bit on this as we continue to travel, because that tolerance is starting to really shrink. I get sick and tired of packing up that backpack. It is not surprising, I've maxed it out. So every time I go to zip it up, it is a tiny miracle that it all gets in there. So doing that every 3 days, roughly on average, I'm really tired of. We actually met a lovely woman in Thailand who was also doing the same thing, and she was talking about decision fatigue. And I think we get that now. There's just always another decision to be made.
Yeah, it's all a bunch of decisions, but it's all good decisions, and it's fun to make. So yeah, it's not easy, but it's well worth it.
Definitely.
Truthfully, I think that we're just figuring it out as we go. As you can probably see in our earlier videos, we've gotten better with our videos. But this truthfully just started as something to let our family back home know that we were safe.
We were alive.
They started sharing it with friends. We started sharing it with friends. I think what we've gotten really passionate about is telling others, encouraging others to do a similar path, and telling them how we do it, which is kind of inspired why we did this video. For other people that are considering it, this is kind of how we do it.
Specifically came into these videos, it was okay, our caption was 2 31-year-olds who are very average, very normal, not influencers, taking a career break and kind of seeing what that looks like. I think a lot of times on YouTube you get people who are either full-time travelers, that's their jobs, or you get people who look like, let's just say that their food budget is a lot less than ours, which is great, happy for them. But we're just kind of your average Joes who quit their jobs and are traveling. And as John said, hopefully it takes someone out there who thinks, oh, there's no way that I could do this, and lets them know that they could. And here's some tips on how to do it. Or if career break isn't really in your agenda, maybe it just lets you see how 2 normal folks travel in different locations, and it inspires you to travel to that location too.
I think that our mindset is probably different than most full-time YouTubers, because we never sacrifice the experience for the point of the video.
That's a hard line rule.
So some people, you see them video the entire experience. Our goal first is to enjoy this experience. We consider it a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Rachel's our editor. I don't think you would ever want to go inside and video edit it and miss out on something amazing that's happening around you.
Yeah, I think I lovingly told John one day, if you're gonna ask me to choose between enjoying a beautiful beach in Indonesia or video editing for 4 hours, I'm gonna choose the beach. So the editing tends to happen when we're on one of our off days where we're doing planning. John's on his phone and I'm on the computer editing. John does a great job of capturing video when we're in the moment, so I'd say you're the main videographer. And then we just kind of put these together whenever we have time. For those very technical out there who want to know, we are filming on a GoPro 8 cross fingers that it doesn't blow up before this thing's over. We've heard some really bad reviews. We do not have a microphone, as you can tell, because I'm shouting at the screen. I am a broadcast journalism major. Shout out to Grady, UGA, class of 13, what's up? I video edit on iMovie because I'm too cheap to buy Final Cut Pro. And like we said, this is in no way, shape, or form meant to be a job replacement. This is just for fun, for inspiration, and to remind our parents back home that we're still okay.
But we're just having fun with it, and hopefully people that are also watching this video are also having fun with it and inspired to do something fun.
Yeah.
Travel the world a little bit more.
Yeah. We do have more months, and we do have more locations and more cities, countries, regions. So if you do have something else that you have a curiosity about that we didn't mention in this video, feel free to comment and pop it in there. We do look at them. And also, if you have any questions about what we've done specifically, any curiosities, let us know. That also helps us be a little bit more insightful into what we do put into our future videos that help people get the information that they want. Thanks so much to all of you out there who have subscribed, who have liked, and it does provide encouragement in doing these videos. As much as we do them for ourselves, it's really awesome to see people around the world following along. So thanks so much for that. Thanks for tuning in to what has become the Traveling Terrells.
Yeah, thanks so much.
And we'll see you in our next location. Drum roll.
Philippines.
Philippines.
Can't wait.
See y'all there.